in the audience there just a moment.
Surely this means that we're returning to two-party politics between Labour and the Conservatives, and the Lib Dems just jumping on any bandwagon that she's going past.
But the question is whether they should feel... Do you think they should feel betrayed, Lib Dems, or not? You're saying not, really.
Yes.
What do you think, the lady here on the hand?
If Simon Hughes thinks that we shouldn't feel betrayed, what about the 57 MPs who directly signed a pledge for students saying you would vote against a rise in top-up fees, and now it's changed and said you're meant to abstain?
All right, we may come to something like that, but you do feel betrayed. Michael Heseltine.
I didn't vote Lib Dem, but I would have done.
You didn't vote Lib Dem, no. So you can't feel betrayed.
But if I'm a student.
But you're a student.
You would have been betrayed.
Yeah.
You would have been betrayed. Yeah. Michael Heseltine.
Well, can we take it step by step? A very high proportion of the people who voted did not vote for a coalition government. So they can argue whatever they like about their preferences. But the fact of the matter is this is a parliamentary democracy. And one of the commonest things said about politicians is they never listen. Well, you did vote. You did determine the composition of the House of Commons. And the politicians had to take account of that. There were options. David Cameron could have tried to govern alone. There could have been a rainbow coalition of the left. There could have been a Lib Lab, a conservative liberal coalition. But what there couldn't have been was an overall conservative government. So what did you want, given the way you'd voted? Well, you could have had another election.
Sorry to interrupt you, but one person voting doesn't vote for a coalition.
No, but
one person votes for
David,
a party.
sorry, the fact is that this audience and the wider audience listening represent British democracy. They voted for a certain sort of House of Commons. The issue is whether the politicians listening to and reflecting the reality of what the people had voted for have any cause for betrayal. And the fact of the matter is that Britain faces the most horrendous economic circumstance. And I believe that David Cameron making a very open, and Melanie would say too open, an offer to the Lib Dems, caught the need of the moment, which was to get a firm, stable government able to cope with the economic difficulties over a full parliament. That is what...
Michael. With respect, Michael, you're acting as if the financial crisis started on May the 7th. We knew that already. That doesn't justify doing this deal. During the election campaign, just to go back to the original question of betrayal, what is a betrayal? When Nick Clegg says a week before election campaign, there is a gulf in values between myself and David Cameron. They have no progressive reform agenda at all, only an unbearable sense of entitlement that it's their time to govern. When he says that, you think, there's a man who doesn't like David Cameron. There's a man who's not going to do a deal with David Cameron. When Sarah Tether campaigns in Brent Central and campaigns against the Labour candidate from the left, she argued from the left and got lots of Labour votes to beat the Labour candidate Dawn Butler. That's a betrayal when her party then backs up the Tory party. When in Norfolk North, Norman Lamb says, vote for me, we'll keep the Tories out, and the Labour vote collapses, the Lib Dem vote goes up and he keeps the seat, and the Lib Dems then jump into government with the Tories, that is a betrayal of all those voters.
Can I just... I mean, this is a wonderful rant, and this is the tradition of the left, and I admire you for getting onto it so quickly. But
you're in bed with the left now, Michael.
There is only one real question.
Yeah.
What would you have had happen?
Very simple answer. Very simple answer, and I'll pose it in a question to Simon Hughes.
No. What is the answer?
The answer is, why did you not
That's not an answer.
Well, it is an answer. Let me speak.
No.
Why did the Liberal Democrats not allow the Tories to govern on their own as a minority government?
I'll give you a
Just because Labour turned them down, they didn't have to jump into bed for 5 seats.
I will tell you the answer.
And none of them even
because
good cabinet
the Tory government would not have lasted 6 months, and the pound would have gone through the floor, and interest rates
the world would have come to an end.
No,
well,
the
Ken
British
Clark told us if we
needs someone to cope with it.
Your friend Ken Clark told us if we have a hung parliament, the IMF will arrive. Where are they? I haven't seen IMF anywhere. You guys have been fear-mongering the whole election campaign.
We have a coalition.
We have a hung parliament.
We have a government.
We were told by Ken Clark a hung parliament. We do have a hung parliament.
We have a coalition government for 5 years.
We have a hung parliament. Now you've got a coalition. Surely you have a governing group with a majority.
We were told that the Conservative Party ran a party election broadcast against a hung parliament party. They said it would give us weak government and a paralysis paralysis of the economy.
Mehdi, let me answer your question.
And Simon Hughes, when you answer, can I do one element of betrayal that many people have talked about is this issue of immigration, your amnesty for illegal immigrants. You've given up that, you've accepted a cap on immigration. Can you include that in your answer?
Yes, I will. Let me deal with the general point that Mehdi asked. We did then have an option. When we reckoned, on the basis of what we were told in meetings with the Labour Party after the election, that the Labour Party were not going to move on any of the things that I would have expected the Labour Party to move on.
That's just not true.
Well, it is true.
Let him have his say.
It is true,
Mehdi.
and it's a sad indictment of the lack of progressive characteristic of the Labour Party and the strength of the old dinosaurs on the right. When that didn't happen, we then had two choices. We could have allowed a minority Tory government to govern, or we could have gone into coalition. And the reason we didn't, and we weighed up both very carefully, was firstly the reason Michael Heseltine rightly gave. It would not have been in Britain's interest for a minority government to inherit power at this time of economic crisis, worse than any time since the war, environmental crisis and political crisis. Yeah. And it would have meant we would have betrayed our voters far more because we would have left an untrammelled Tory party to govern with no
rubbish.
Really? No, not rubbish at all. There would have been Tory policies, rather than an agreement which has many of our policies. And bluntly, I don't go into politics to be only in opposition. I go into politics to be in power so that I can deliver the things I want. So I can deliver the things I want. The people who elect me in one of the most disadvantaged parts of this country, and I want to take poor people out of tax. I want to make sure children have a better start at schools.
You want to have public spending cuts this year, which you campaigned.
I want to make sure we have fair public spending cuts.
You said this is nonsense.
Yes,
self-serving.
If I hear another politician talk about the national interest, I think I shall puke. This deal was done between two parties.